Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special meeting for the Runnemede Planning and Zoning Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask everyone to rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act has been given in the following manner: posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Clerk's office and emailed to the Retrospect and the Courier Post. Ms. Miller, we have roll call, please.
Ms. Cleaver?
Yes.
Mr. Alter? Ms. Fusion?
Here.
Mr. Buckheim?
Here. Present.
Mr. Vanella?
Here.
Ms. Farmer?
Here.
Mr. Buckheim?
Here.
Mr. McManus? Or Madam?
Here.
Councilman Sapira?
Here.
Ms. Burke? Here. Mr. Usilli?
Here.
Mr. Rowan?
Here.
And Candace, I'm sorry, on the mic.
That's okay, kind of flew.
Madam
Okay, great. David, would you like to swear in the professionals, please?
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give this board tonight is truthful and accurate to the best of your knowledge.
Yes.
All right, thank you. What we have on the agenda this evening is a public hearing in regards to the 2025 Housing Element and Fair Share Plan. Candace, I guess we'll just defer to you.
Okay, thank you. Sounds good. All right. So I am going to go into a little background just because the borough hasn't necessarily done this before. But basically, affordable housing in New Jersey, there's Mount Laurel regulations. You may have heard some stuff in the news about it and everything, but the crux of it is recently in 2024, the Fair Housing Act was amended to require some new things and to abolish what was called COA. And the powers were given to the state to facilitate and look over and regulate every municipality and their affordable housing obligations in the entire state. So the state offers immunity to municipalities if they're in compliance with their obligations. What that means is it gives protection to a town, to the borough, that if a developer would come in and try to develop a big, whatever, something that doesn't fit in with the borough, they could say, well, you aren't complying with your requirements to offer affordable housing, so we're going to build this 10-story high, affordable housing apartments or whatever, something that doesn't fit into the town. And they would be permitted to, the state.
Higher density, wasn't that a big part of it?
Higher density.
Higher density stuff,
That's
yeah.
usually what they want to do, to make it profitable for them. So the state has done calculations. The DCA was in charge of doing a very complicated math equation to give every municipality an obligation of what's called present need, which is rehabilitation requirement, and prospective need, which is a number that is to be a number of units that are required based on their estimate of how much development is going to happen in the town in the next 10 years. So it's a 10-year span. It's a 10-year plan, much like your master plans. We look forward 10 years. And speaking of master plans, this is considered an element of your master plan. So it's the planning board's job to review it, adopt it, and keep that in mind when applications come in front of the planning board. So there's a process for these what we're in is currently known as round 4. There are prior rounds of the obligation affordable housing, which since the borough hasn't taken steps towards, we take that into consideration as well, kind of cumulatively look at how much obligation was given to the borough from the state, and then evaluate how that can be satisfied. So that's just, so the process is, back in March, you filed a resolution and received a declaratory judgment action that stated that the borough was in favor of participating with the affordable housing requirements of the state. That was your first step. The next step is kind of waiting to make sure there's no one challenging the borough on that, and since you said you agree with the numbers that you were given, no one would challenge that. And then, so now we're in the last deadline, which is June 30th, not the last deadline, but the next deadline, June 30th, deadline to adopt and endorse the housing element fair share plan and file it with the court or the program. It's known as the program instead of COA now. So if you hear people talking about the program, that's what that means. So July 1st is officially the first day of the fourth round. There's a time after that someone can challenge the validity of the housing element and fair share plan. That ends on August 31st. So that's something positive that the state actually did to give it a firm deadline instead of just letting people challenge anytime they want.
So once we approve it, they got 30 days to contest it. Anybody know?
Well, it was really, if I can jump in, there's a lot of municipalities, it's really loud. There's a lot of municipalities that are challenging their numbers. Our number is 39, Candace, is that our number?
Yes.
Where some towns have thousands. So I even received an email today from a mayor in Hopewell. There's a bunch of towns trying to challenge all this and trying to make changes. Just to understand what council and myself, we thought that the numbers were fair. We thought that we're a built-out community. We didn't really think that builder's revenue was a problem, but we also felt that we wanted to follow the law. The law said you got to do all these things, so why not us just do it, because you never know what could happen. Typically municipalities, like, I hate to say, but towns close to us that have a lot more land, they get charged more because these builders, and Candace tell me that they're trying to build more houses than are allowed. It may be zoned for every half acre, and they want to have, remember we had those problems when we were first dealing with where Ashbrook Landing, how many units were being squeezed in there. Now, we didn't have an affordable housing element back then. Had we under round 2 or round 3, even though we did do some preliminary, like a resolution, we never said to any developer coming to town, because we weren't really thinking about them, that we said, well, we want 15% of those 100 homes could have been affordable housing. So we never did that, not thinking about it. So now we're at a point where I believe we're doing this more as an exercise, but it may come, it could be important to us. If we don't do this, the state could take away state funding from us because we're not following the rules.
So how long do we have for the 39 then?
Well, let's see, Candace can answer that a little bit more than me, because that's part of a plan.
I'll go into that shortly.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, just, to that point, there's more at stake this term, this round, than there were necessarily on the prior rounds, because it is kind of somewhat tied to state funding. So there's some things before a lot of municipalities said it's not worth it, we don't have, so we're never going to be able to build, however many units the state is going to tell us, or we're a complete built out community. We're not going to bother with that because it's a lot of money to spend. And
Like we were speaking of.
the likelihood is not.
Yeah, if someone were to, we had an applicant in about perhaps a year and a half, 2 years ago. They were going to put like maybe 6 units up on the hill across from where the DMV and stuff is. So like if they were to put 6 to 10 units, one of those would have to be affordable housing, correct?
You're proposing 15% of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 15% would have been,
So that's still a thing that can
That's the
happen.
number.
not from ones that have already been approved.
Right.
They're done.
Like, so we
This is
can't
for new
enforce that on, like, LaQuinta.
It's only new applications.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
I like that.
And this is just for subdivisions?
This is for multifamily, any residential, any residential. So any residential that, and you guys are good, you're making.
We're jumping ahead, we're jumping
Which is
ahead.
fine,
Go ahead.
which is good. So, let me first.
Go in order.
What page you?
The obligations are listed on page 4 and pages 4 and 5. The other part, the beginning part of the document is really just looking at the demographics and what's, changed over the past few years. So the prior obligations from the state were 28 for the present need, which is the rehabilitation requirement. And then prior round, which was 1987 to 1999, is 40 units, and third round prospective need, which was 1999 to 2025, was 77 units. In this fourth round, the DCA provided numbers of a present need for rehabilitation of 59 units and prospective need for the fourth round, which is the next 10 years, is 39 units. What rehabilitation or present need means is those units where you're required to put either through grants through the county or your own money if you have an affordable housing trust fund, which I'll get into in a minute too. $10,000 to upgrade a home or an apartment, and that qualifies as a rehabilitated unit under the regulations.
So we will be paying that.
You will be out of your trust fund, or you'll use state money. A lot of municipalities
State
work
grants.
with the CDBG grants, county money, and don't actually pay anything out of pocket.
It actually happens a lot. Every year,
Yeah.
there's money
Yeah.
that the county controls.
It's usually happening anyway.
And we don't even know it's happening. People are applying to get it.
Exactly. So it's a matter of if you keep track of it, you get the credit, and that's, so.
So the developer would not be paying that. It would either be coming from state grant money or some type of a trust.
Yes, yes.
But how do we know we get that credit if somebody's getting that money?
Well, there are very, very strict outlined rules that the township has to adopt an ordinance, which we do have a draft ordinance in, affordable housing methods, and there's a method to keep track and to log everything, and then there's a reporting requirements to the state to show them on a regular basis, how many units have been rehabilitated, how many units have been approved, and kind of like just a check to see the progress. So it's a little more paperwork, but actually now it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, it's a lot easier to keep track of, and towns have less kind of work to do independently, and a lot of it's just entering kind of numbers. Once the person, there will be a municipal housing liaison.
She's actually here this evening,
Oh, good.
Ms. Miller.
Okay, that, Ms. Miller.
We already pointed at you. Yeah.
One more letter and your name
Yeah.
on the hat.
So there's all kinds of things that have to be done in the program through the state, and that's how you keep track. So there is a way, and there's a very regimented way to go about that. So what we did was, again, the next bunch of pages are demographics that were collected that are required to as part of this process. And then page 16 is kind of starts the heart of the report, prior, third, and fourth round obligation compliance. So what we did was we combined all of the obligation of Runnemede and went through and looked what credits we could claim that are already in the borough. So you'll see this list, there's a lot of group homes, recovery centers, and adding those up, it gets you to 76.8 units. And then there's bonus credits that are allotted for certain types of units. So 17.34 bonus credits, and that gives you a total of 94 credits. So if you add up the prior round, third round, and fourth round obligation of 156 units, there's 94 credits that are delineated that we found already existing in the borough. So we also did a study of the realistic development potential within the borough, which is just looking at any vacant parcels to see what realistically could have a development of 5 or more units at 6. Because the magic number here through the state is 6 units per acre is how much, is what kickstarts the affordable housing requirements. So every unit, for every 5 units, the 6 has to be a deed restricted affordable unit, whether that's multifamily, apartments, whether it's townhomes, whatever type of residential dwelling it is. That's what starts the counting. So through the RDP, which is the realistic development potential, we evaluated parcels, came up with a potential of 16 units could be created through what is currently available in the borough. And meets the criteria. Excuse me?
Vacant land?
Yes, yes. And there's very specific criteria that you look at that, can't be constrained by wetlands, and it has to be buildable parcels, and it can't be currently utilized. So, that number comes out to there's 46 units that still remain unfulfilled. So how are we going to, apply these 46 units into the borough plan? What we did was recommend the amendment of the borough code to include 2 ordinances, which are in the appendices. These are just drafts. They'll need to be tweaked, I'm sure, because the rules are changing slightly, of course, but that just gives you an idea of the rules. Basically, it's the first ordinance would be establishing affordable housing procedural and eligibility requirements. That's the real nitty-gritty that will be really having to look at when it comes to like an actual unit on the ground being built, who's eligible for it, and how to go through the process of getting that unit and getting the credit for that unit. The second ordinance is
We're talking ordinances or the resolutions?
ordinance.
Just to be clear. Okay, thank
These
you.
are
There's going to be
ordinances.
land use ordinances.
Yes, that borough council would have to adopt.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So, and then there's another, I'm sorry, this ordinance would require any property in the borough that's currently zoned for residential or receives a use variance for residential or a redevelopment plan that permits residential development would have to provide affordable housing set aside of 15% for rentals and 20% for sale units. So, and that qualifies for any development that has 5 units or more on the site.
And who determines that, so if it's 5 units or more, and say it's a sale, not a rental, so that one unit that it's low income or whatever, who determines what price that goes to?
That is all laid out by the state.
Oh, all right.
So there are requirements laid out. We actually, on the page right before this, page 15, it says there's a table called 2025 regional income limits.
Yeah.
And those are the state's income limits and qualifiers for someone to just start to be eligible. There's other requirements also, but you'll see, so there's moderate units, and again, it's a very, there's a calculation required with this, but you have to have a certain number of moderate price units and a certain number of low units, and then a certain number of very low income units. So there's a combination of bedroom requirements. There's a lot of things to consider, but
Yeah.
again, we have a draft ordinance, there's model ordinances, there's a method, but it's like, it is complicated to, you know, wrap your head around, but there is a set rule book for it.
Right.
So, let's see.
So the point is, if an applicant came in front of us,
Right.
they would, their engineer, the architect would look at this and plan this all out.
Yeah.
So if someone came in and said they wanted to build 30 apartments on the Black Horse Pike, this now takes effect. They have to use this guideline to come up with a proposal for us.
Exactly, and it takes the onus off of the borough of having to plan and pay for and fund some sort of development that would provide 46 units. You're putting it, you're allowing, you're giving the opportunity for these to be constructed, and then should someone come in, that developer is responsible for getting that unit.
Meeting these requirements and so on.
Exactly, yes. And there's ways to work with, if it's, you know, not feasible, I mean, there's, again, ways that I'll go into for the borough to help, assist, make it potentially more affordable. But again, it is, the onus is on the developer. And then also, the second ordinance is affordable housing development fee ordinance. And what that does is collect money from developers into a trust fund, affordable housing trust fund, that will provide money for helping with either the rehabilitation or the, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Either rehabilitation, or there's also something that's required that is called assistance, affordable housing assistance, that's required as a piece of this, which really is helping, helping residents of the borough be able to afford an apartment. You can have like some sort of grant program that kind of gives a little assistance in helping people pay their rent, helping upgrade some homes that might not reach that rehabilitation number, but like get somebody in need, some new appliances. There's all kinds of ways to help with that. And part of this plan, which we don't have yet, but will be a spending plan, and that is showing the state and also a good guide for the borough that lays out how much money, again, it's all kind of guessed, but it looks at the next 10 years and how much money you think will be coming in. The development fees are 3% of the assessed value of the final development. So if a business is coming in, they would have to pay 3% of their.
Is that what you're proposing, 3%?
Yes, that's required, that's what's required.
Because I paid 2.5% in Gloucester Township for my building, and it was the added assessed value. So my buildings that I tore down, 3 buildings, they had a base assessed value. When I built the new building, the increase between what my buildings were worth and what the new building was worth, the assessor took that number and multiplied it. I thought it was 2.5%.
No, I'm sorry, it's 1.5%.
1.5 for residential and 2.5 for commercial?
Residential and, yeah.
2.5 for, so,
That's the whole county.
well, no, this is this fund, this ordinance we're gonna adopt.
Right.
So hypothetically, the warehouse just got built. They spent $7 million. I believe, Candace, double check, I believe they would have to pay 2.5% of the added assessment, the improvements made to that.
2.5%. yeah.
2.5%.
Sorry,
So to give you just some round numbers for me, when I did Gloucester Township, they charged me $28,000 just to get my CO. They would not allow me to get my CO until I paid this. Now, what that means, just so everybody hears this, and Beth hears this, our construction office has to be on the same page. Like, Gloucester Township would not allow me to move forward until I basically signed an affidavit that said I would pay that 2.5%.
And you had to pay before you got.
I had to pay it up front.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, some municipalities, there is a method where I thought, again, and maybe it just depends on the town, but 50% is paid up front and then 50%.
Gloucester Township did it all at the end, but
Yeah.
you're right, I think there were different ways of doing it.
Yeah, but they just, yeah, it's
So
a way.
So like Ashbrook Landing, every time they ask back for a CO, they're like, do we have to pay the impact fee? And we don't have it. And imagine on a $30 million project,
How about on?
how much money that would have went into this.
Now,
into
on
this.
Ninth Avenue, did they have to pay?
Nope, the ordinance is right here.
Yeah, legally, not.
We've never looked at this because we never thought that a town like Runnemede that's built out really needed to do much. And to me, it's a little bit onerous on people. It's another fee to charge people. It sometimes pushes people from doing development. But
Yeah.
the only thing I would ask that, Candace, was I'm under the impression that this trust fund, the town has the ability to use it sometimes to help initiate projects. Like, for example, we bought a piece of land, gave the land to the developer. Is that true? This trust fund is used by us to facilitate?
So you have the money to do it, but it needs to be in the spending plan that's approved by the state.
Okay.
So, yes, and Dave, feel free to correct me if I'm not right, but,
You sounded good.
okay. But yes, it needs to be kind of identified in the housing plan and the spending.
So we have to say that we might buy a piece of land.
Yeah.
You can't just do it without having the plan approved.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so, which is fine, I mean, that's,
I'm not saying we're doing that, but I know other towns have done that.
but there's also, yeah, so you will get a collection of a pretty decent amount of money, and the interest that's collected stays in and all has to be applied to affordable housing. Also, 20% of that can be used for administrative costs, so paying.
The chairman of the planning board? Okay, good.
Illegal.
It's only been 20 years, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
Paying
Illegal.
part of the.
Not going nowhere, nor jump
salary. Yes, that is.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it's a good story.
It would go towards best salary. She would keep track of the time she
Oh,
pays.
way to go, Beth.
Yeah.
She just thought it was a title, now she knows she has to do some work.
Paying for the planning fees, but you have to be careful not to go over that 20%. Again, that's all going to be calculated out, but it's all estimates. So really what we do is look at, I've been looking at the past couple of years in most of our towns and trying to make an educated guess of what's been approved and what will be collected. It's a moving target.
I thought it was interesting in your report how many COs for new construction we had in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Did anybody read that page?
No, it did not.
Candace, you want to tell everybody how many new COs for new homes we had built in the town in the past 10 years?
Not many, I remember.
It was 0.
I was gonna say,
Everyone's more than 10 years. I thought about that too, you know? Yes.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about rehab. We're talking about a piece of land that a house was built on.
In the last 10 years, we had 0.
Well, that's what they ran through, right? You did.
Yeah, that's what was anyway on the state's website.
It's on the state's
even
website.
the big subdivision.
We just did that one.
How about the one in Singley and West Clements Bridge that faces side?
You're right, there was one. So we missed one.
And then-
But it doesn't really matter. The point was, the number was so low.
They
You are
might
right.
use the foundation.
They might have used the foundation.
That's why.
Yeah, but what about the one day on, when you turn at the, when you
Oh, you
turn,
didn't use our program, you
you
used the
turn
state's
after
website.
the,
Yes, so.
Irish Hill Pub
PCA
on the left-hand side. That was an empty lot.
PCA has a site.
If I get our construction department to do that,
Oh, you want
update that
ours?
page,
Sure,
Okay.
It was
before
on
we put this out.
the left-hand side.
It
In
has
the
to
last
be-
10 years?
We have to put this, submit this in 48 hours.
That was a
It's
rehab.
done tomorrow.
Up at the three-way stop sign now?
Before that.
Because you're right, there was another house on 4th Avenue. It was a subdivision.
Wow.
I have two.
For sure.
Yeah, matter of fact.
More than 10 years.
Smith and Hill.
We're looking at 10 years.
Smith and Elm had,
All right, what we'll do is if the state, now why wouldn't the state have that? That means we didn't transfer that information to them. Oh, that's great, thank you.
right off from the other corner.
We notify the board, and notify the state every time you get a sale.
What's that?
You have to notify the state every time.
So just so, the question is that we notify the state. Now what's supposed to happen is the construction department pays, we pay UCC fees. And that goes into a uniform trust account. All that stuff is supposed to be recorded at the state level. And if Candace went on their website and didn't get it,
That means we didn't.
you know, so that's one more thing we have to now audit and look at and say why, because we just named a few houses. And I kept thinking, oh, maybe it's more than 10 years.
Right.
You're right, a couple of these were, don't even point to me.
The accessor.
You're still missing it, it's the construction department that submits to the state.
Right.
If you know, to digress slightly again, the construction office always reminds me, they don't work for the borough.
I'm saying, but his-
They work for the state of New Jersey. They just happen to get paid by us.
That's what I was saying, his house that he built, back by you, that was built.
That was a tear down.
That was the area.
Would a tear down count and a rebuild?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. It has to be a new unit.
You're looking at new
Something
expand-
that was-
From vacant land.
From vacant land.
I'm almost sure that lot was empty. I'm going to
Yeah,
the
well,
lot.
I'll take care of it before 48 hours, all right.
10 years flies by.
You want to send that email out? You send that email, because I'm the bad guy all the time.
Especially that 4-day work week, Beth.
That was a wish.
She knew not to ask me.
Ooh, you just got the snake eye,
If
baby.
you have to submit it, make
Yeah.
sure that's.
This is the world we live in.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
What's that?
The appendices. I apologize. The appendices for some reason have different
Oh, it does?
orders than the rest of the report.
Ah,
So
thank you there,
we'll
Harry.
amend that. Thank you so much.
What page was that?
Starting
18.
after page 17. They're not numbered, but it's the appendices. It's magnolia.
Copy and paste it a lot, just got it.
This is said.
Steve is there. yes.
But this has got to be under us, we make sure we got it
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. So, yes,
Oh,
I am happy to answer any questions or anything. It's been a good discussion. But really, the job of the planning board is to adopt the housing element and fair share plan that addresses the housing obligation. We have a resolution tonight to adopt, and then they get submitted. The rule is within 48 hours, it has to get submitted to the state. And then we have until March to adopt all the ordinances and the spending plan, everything that's required.
March of 2026.
Yes. But, the sooner we get the development fee ordinance and the housing ordinances on the books, the sooner you can start collecting. But you can't collect except only for new applications.
So the one thing I will say that's very interesting I didn't know was that I think it's a great idea for us. If the borough were to collect this money from development, giving it back to help people fix their houses up, I think that's an easy one because I don't see us having a lot of land to build. But if we can
Yes.
have an application, give that $10,000,
We get credits for that?
it does, we get a credit for every one of those rehabs.
So how would they apply for that?
Well, they'd have to, it's a very formal, it's about income, it's all this stuff. So usually the county community block grant takes care of all this. We could actually partner with them and just say, we're gonna throw some of our own money into it. Almost sounds like
That'd be
it.
the work of
And
that.
Just make Beth do it.
There's some units that have to be that very low income level, which is really hard. There's a gap there that a lot of landlords cannot handle. So they, those funds are very often used for that too, just to help a very
Offset.
low income family be able to get into an apartment.
So
that
with McQuinton, we could go in and help somebody that's at low at the end,
Yes.
get them into the apartment and help them pay part of their rent.
Yes, and that would qualify, yes, as.
So where would they apply?
So there's all kinds of marketing requirements. Again, there will be a requirement to have a easily viewable page on your website.
Yeah.
And
On our website.
it's going to be outreach, you know, maybe in your.
So just so everyone knows, our website is getting redone right now, integrating more forms and information. This would just be part of it. And then once again, the county does the exact same program. So we're just running parallel with them.
And you know when the word gets out that there's money to be had.
You'd be surprised though, even though because it's hard.
It's a good thing.
It is hard to get through this, to prove it. That's why these hurdles are difficult. Even
Yeah,
if
there
somebody's-
is a set amount of
Right,
requirements
it's
to
hard.
become eligible.
So would that be available only after March of next year?
No, as soon as this, well, you have to have money.
Money.
Yeah.
In the trust fund.
I mean, would
So-
someone have to wait to apply
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
March of next
Yeah.
year?
So they, not March, I mean, if July 1st you adopt the ordinance, which you won't, because it's not ready, but then you could, and you start getting applications in and collecting as soon as there's money in there. But it can't be until the ordinance is adopted. That doesn't have to wait till March. That's just the deadline.
And who sets the criteria so far as you're saying $10,000, but say, what if someone, needed part of their roof repaired for $5,000? Are we able to set that criteria and say we want to give them $5,000 to fix the back half of the roof, or?
There's two different things. The one is the rehabilitation/present need requirement. That the state has a price of $10,000 or more to qualify as a rehab unit. But for the assisted program, where you're just assisting, you have a 30% of your affordable housing trust fund to spend on that.
So somebody's hot water heater breaks and it ruins the sheetrock and everything in their basement. They need a hot water heater and some new sheetrock that's going to cost them $8,000.
Yeah, or somebody needs, to upgrade appliances.
As long as they qualify.
Yeah.
Understood, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So there's, you can give them $500, you could give them $5,000.
Couch to instead.
Yeah.
Oh,
It just,
just a running number.
exactly. And again, it's a moving target, but the rule is 30% of the trust fund should go to there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it is, they mean well, it's just a lot of hoops.
I can't tell you how many people walked away from their houses in Brigantine in 2020, in 2012 after Sandy, because they had no flood insurance. And the old folks, they walked away. They got nothing, just walked away. It was terrible. You know what I mean? So if we can help people, even if it's $10,000 at a time, I think it's wonderful.
Does that count against the total count? Like, how does that affect?
But the point is that there's two ways for us to get our number. It's new units being built, the percentage, or these rehab helps us to get our number. And I believe, even if we don't hit our number, I think the state's attitude is we have to try. And what happened, Runnemede was part of everyone else. A lot of the towns in Camden County, they ignored all this because we really weren't getting sued by builders. So there wasn't this liability that undeveloped communities were having. So we didn't really pay attention to this as much. Now the state is starting to say we have to be more proactive. So, you can't just pass an ordinance. You got to pass an ordinance and do stuff. You got to do something. Because when they do the best practices on us, they can take away up to 1% of our state aid. But 1% could be tens of thousands of dollars if we don't follow their rules. So we're going to try. We'll see. I almost failed, and I'm going to say this to everyone here. I feel bad that, imagine had we done this 2 years ago with all these things happening. And Beth will tell you, I was trying to get this impact fee done quickly so we could get some of these houses and stuff like that. But it was made very clear to me, anything that was approved was no longer subject. Because D.R. Horton kept calling every week, saying, hey, can we pay? Can we pay? They couldn't believe that we didn't have an impact fee.
If the guy walks away from La Quinta for what we,
Yes,
there, then
that's an example.
Right.
That's absolutely an example, and if something, But I will say just one more thing about this. I thought it was very interesting, if you start reading about affordability and stuff like that, towns can be very creative. This town, we don't have a lot of buildable lots, but we do have a few. Like, there was an example in one town where they owned the lot because they took it back on municipal lien, like it was imagine we've torn some properties down, and we, Harry will tell you, we're out there cutting grass on some empty lots. Well, the town could incentivize a developer to build it we give the, land, and it becomes we say, well, the only thing you can build here is a duplex. That's affordable, it could be as little as a duplex in town. That's an affordable housing unit.
I thought it had to be 5 units, so to get.
No, it's only that kicks in the required to set aside, but if it's less than 5 units, they have to do a development fee, provide a fee.
In lieu of,
In lieu of building.
discounting the rent on the
And
property.
some municipalities require, because they'll say all of them are affordable. They only approve the application with a pilot program, but they all have to be affordable. Like an entire development, correct? Can be done that
You
way.
can't necessarily require that, but
I did hear that from a town. They were,
they require someone else to do it.
someone else was developing their approval, and that all the units were going to be. But I don't know the circumstances. I don't know.
Because there are 100% affordable developments that a municipality might either pay for or, again, like assist. A lot of towns, you could create a redevelopment area and then work with a redeveloper and help them in some way, like you said. If you
Remember, the state's big. Everybody's, there's a lot of things going on, right? So you have all these towns talking about this issue.
Yeah, there's a lot of things and ways to do it. You can do it with accessory dwelling units or, like some people hate, some people love them.
We're talking about the mini homes behind.
Yeah.
Like in Runnemede, we actually have an ordinance that says you can't have a detached
Yeah,
set residence. If you remember, we had an applicant come in here and put a bridge. You were part of the board when Dave did that. He connected it.
right.
But now the state is really pushing mother-in-law suites or accessory buildings to a point where
Yeah.
there's actually a bill on the legislature right now superseding us, saying that we can't stop somebody
Yeah.
from building an accessory.
Right. That hasn't been.
Hasn't been approved,
Yes, yeah.
but it is definitely been talked
Yeah.
about, because
Oh, yeah.
they're saying the towns are so against some of this stuff.
Even if it goes against our code, like say.
And remember, we are subjects of the state, so they can pass a law that we have no choice.
Supersedes us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, it's definitely an encroachment on our land use authority that we have over our towns, but the state, they can say.
Because what if someone decides we want to put 2 little sheds in or whatever, and
Well,
it takes up like 9%?
I don't know the bill real well.
Yeah. But it remains to be seen if it's actually passed. But,
Gary, you knew about that bill, then you obviously heard that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's accessory buildings.
there's also though, like, group homes, every bed in a group home counts.
Yeah, I saw we have the 2.
Yeah, and every, at recovery centers, beds in recovery centers, assisted living, nursing homes. So there's a lot of ways, you just have to find them. And sometimes group homes are kind of hard to find because it's kind of private. So we were able to find a couple, but, there might even be more that we don't know about, so. But anyway, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Since this is a public hearing, you need to open it up to the public before you vote.
I'm going to ask anybody from the board if they have any additional questions for our professionals. If not, I'd like to open up the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter and this matter only, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address and be heard.
Democracy.
See, there's no one, and I didn't close that.
Sorry.
Motion by Ms. Cushin, seconded by Mr. Vanel to close the public portion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have Resolution 2513. Mr. Rowan, please.
Yes, Candy has presented the Housing Element Fair Share Plan dated June 2025. You've heard her testimony. And it's your requirement to listen, to open it up to the public. And if you want to adopt this, the fourth round Housing Element and Fair Share Plan for the Borough of Runnemede, need a motion to vote. Sign it tonight, I think. We want to get it signed tonight because there's a time that this has to be
48 hours.
Trades, ET up to the courts or, okay, so we just need a motion to approve.
Okay, I would ask members of the board to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 25-13.
I make a motion?
Second?
Ms. Cushin, Mr. Wozon, may we have roll call, please?
Ms. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Ms. Fusion?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Mr. Vanella?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wozak?
Yes.
Mr. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Pat?
Yes.
Okay, so that motion is approved. Next, we're going to move on to good and welfare. Anyone from the audience wishing to speak on any matter whatsoever, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and be heard.
Madam Chair, seeing no one coming up from the public, I motion to close to good and welfare.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Vanel. We have a second. Second from Mr. Wozak. All in favor to close the good and welfare portion? There's no additional business before the board this evening?
I do have one thing, I know we're packing up, but first of all, I always want to thank everybody showing up at these meetings. The attendance at this is phenomenal. Just to let you know, I go to so many other towns, and they don't even have enough people for a quorum. It's amazing to me that they keep postponing meetings because they can't get a quorum. That's the first thing. But the most important thing I wanted to mention to this group, the reason we had 2 meetings tonight is because of advertising constraints. We could have done this last night because of advertising. There is a bill that is hopefully getting passed. Do you read all this stuff, Gary?
Somewhat.
So, the Open Meetings Act, so advertising will be done electronically, which will now help us to conform to the requirements from the Open Meetings Act. So we can put it on, so what the bill, quickly, it says, if we advertise on our website and on a public forum, that'll be good enough for the requirements to publicly advertise. So that will help us. Because Beth can tell you that retrospect's only once a week on one day. In Kerry Post, you have to get it in by Tuesday. And if you miss it,
I guess it's Friday, but it's a very specific time.
it's a very specific time frame.
20 minutes after I spoke to you guys to get it to the Courier for Tuesdays. And it was
couldn't-
Thursday or Friday I did that.
Yeah.
Start working through lunch, okay?
No, the Kerry Post had a window, and we missed the window.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't post on any of the, like either the Courier or the rest?
Those days are coming to an end, and once again, I've told everybody, the reason for this is the Asbury Park Press, which was the largest paper in the state, went digital. And the papers were the biggest proponents of keeping public notices. But once they went digital, their argument kind of fades and things like that. Now, do I argue that we need to have a public forum because it's hard? Imagine trying to go to each town's website to get a, like for bids that are going out. That's why this bill still has this public forum. So if you guys do this, you can do a little exercise where you go to New Jersey Public Notices. You can go on that website and say, for example, you want to sell signs for a living, you type in signs, and any bid that has the word signs in it, you can see it. So I think this is a positive thing for people to see it, and I think it's easier to search than to read newspapers, which I think we finally have realized that it's changed. So I think that'll help us so we don't have to have these special meetings. But I do appreciate everybody coming out for a special meeting because we do have this June 30th deadline to get this done. So thank you.
You are most welcome. Okay, well, with that, I want to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Wozak, Mr. Vanel, all in favor? Meeting adjourned at 7:49.